He thought firing me in front of 30 people would prove he was in control. He thought stripping my badge at 9:17 on a Tuesday morning would make him look decisive. What he didn't know was that my name wasn't just on the org chart. It was embedded in a $480 million contract that his signature could not override. And by Friday, the same board that applauded him would be asking federal investigators how they missed a $94 million diversion scheme hiding behind my termination. My name is Julia Bennett. For 14 years, I built the Strategic Partnerships Division at Meridian Dynamics from a 3-person support team into the company's most profitable arm. We weren't flashy. We didn't chase headlines. We built long-term international infrastructure deals that paid steadily, quarter after quarter. I believed in loyalty. I believed in institutional knowledge. I believed that if you built something strong enough, it couldn't be erased by ego. I was wrong. Ethan Caldwell walked into our headquarters wearing a navy Brioni suit and a smile polished by private equity boardrooms. 36 years old. Son of a venture capitalist. Installed as CEO after a leadership realignment. He called an all-hands meeting my first week back from Tokyo negotiations. We stood in the glass conference room overlooking downtown Manhattan while rain streaked down the windows. He didn't waste time. "We're eliminating redundancy," he said. "Effective immediately, Strategic Partnerships is dissolved. You're all done." 30 faces turned toward me. People I had hired. People whose kids I'd held at hospital visits. People who had relocated across continents because I promised stability. I felt every eye waiting for me to fight. To shout. To humiliate him the way he was humiliating us. Instead, I closed my laptop slowly. "May I ask the basis for this decision?" My voice was steady. That surprised him. "Outdated methods," he replied. "We're pivoting to agile, digitally driven models." Agile. The word almost made me laugh. My so-called outdated methods generated 42% of company revenue. My Tokyo negotiation alone secured the largest infrastructure contract in Meridian's history. But I simply nodded. Understood. Security escorted us out. The theater of it was deliberate. 2 guards flanking executives who had never taken so much as a paperclip. I packed 14 years into a cardboard box. A chipped mug from our first expansion into Singapore. A framed photo of my team in Osaka. A small glass award for operational excellence, which suddenly felt ironic. As the elevator descended, I didn't cry. I calculated. Because buried in the Hikari Global Agreement, page 312, subsection 18.4, was a key person clause. My name. Not my title. Not project director. Julia Bennett. The clause required my continued involvement for the contract to remain active. If my employment was terminated without written consent from both international partners, the entire agreement triggered immediate review. That wasn't vanity. It was protection. The clients insisted after watching competitors implode during leadership reshuffles. Ethan had just fired the keystone holding up nearly half the company's revenue. And he had no idea. By Wednesday morning, my phone showed 67 missed calls. I didn't answer. Silence is uncomfortable in corporate culture. It amplifies panic. I knew the Hikari board would attempt contact. I knew their legal teams would reread every line. By Thursday, the first email arrived through my personal account. "Ms. Bennett, we have been unable to reach you regarding scheduled deliverables. Please clarify your status immediately." I didn't respond. Not yet. Because this was no longer about ego. It was about consequences unfolding naturally. Friday at 8:03 a.m., my former colleague David from finance called using his personal phone. "Julia, what did you do?" he whispered. Hikari suspended payments. The Singapore facility halted construction. Caldwell is in emergency meetings. I hadn't done anything. That was the point. The contract had done exactly what it was designed to do. Later that afternoon, an email from Meridian's general counsel arrived. Subject line, urgent resolution proposal. They wanted to reinstate me. Immediate restoration. Salary increase. Expanded authority. The language was careful. No apology. Just strategic reconsideration. I poured coffee and read it twice. They still thought this was a negotiation. They didn't know that the situation had already escalated beyond corporate repair. Because something else had surfaced. When Hikari's auditors reopened the agreement under review protocol, they noticed irregular amendments to payment acceleration schedules. Minor percentage shifts. Altered milestone triggers. $94 million in adjusted distributions that routed through shell subcontractors approved during executive override windows. Override windows authorized by the CEO. Ethan hadn't just made a reckless termination. He had tried to create operational chaos to mask financial manipulation. The key person clause forced the audit that exposed it. By Saturday, federal investigators contacted Hikari. By Sunday, Meridian's board convened an emergency session. I received a courier-delivered offer that afternoon. Executive Vice President. 40% salary increase. Immediate equity vesting. Name your additional terms. It was desperation dressed as opportunity. That night, I stood at my apartment window watching rain slide down the glass the same way it had Tuesday morning. 14 years of loyalty ended in 3 words. You're all done. But endings have layers. On Monday, the FBI subpoenaed Meridian's financial records. On Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after my termination, Ethan Caldwell was escorted out of the same building in handcuffs. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. He looked smaller without the corner office behind him. The board called me at 10:12 a.m. We need you back, the chairman said. You're the only one who can stabilize this. I let the silence stretch long enough for him to understand something fundamental. They didn't need me. They needed what I represented. Integrity. Structure. Foresight. And those aren't things you reinstall like software updates. I'll consult during the investigation, I said. At my rate. In writing. No employment. There was a pause. Then agreement. Because leverage shifts quickly when truth enters the room. I didn't celebrate his arrest. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. Ethan thought power was visibility. Public firings. Bold declarations. Executive overrides. Real power is quiet. It's built into clauses no one bothers to read. It's years of credibility that cannot be replaced in a press release. He believed eliminating me removed resistance. Instead, it removed the only barrier between his fraud and federal exposure. By the time the investigation expanded, they uncovered coordination with Meridian's CFO. Multiple board members under review. What began as a termination became a structural collapse. And I was already outside the building when it fell. But this story doesn't end with handcuffs. It ends with a decision. Because when the board doubled their offer and promised cultural reform, I had to ask myself something uncomfortable. Was I fighting for justice, or was I just afraid to walk away from everything I built? That answer came later. And it changed everything. The first time the board used the word collapse, I knew it was over. Not Ethan. Not the investigation. Meridian itself. By Wednesday afternoon, 3 more executives were under federal review. The CFO had negotiated immunity in exchange for testimony, and the company's stock had entered freefall. The same directors who once debated quarterly margins were now whispering about criminal liability. And somehow, in the middle of all that, they still thought bringing me back would fix it. They invited me into a private conference room at a midtown law firm. Neutral ground. No corporate logos. No glass towers. Just polished wood, bottled water, and fear hanging in the air. The chairman spoke first. "Julia, we made a mistake." It was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get. "We were blinded by growth projections. We underestimated what you built." Underestimated. That word again. For 14 years, I negotiated contracts across time zones while missing anniversaries and birthdays. I learned Japanese business etiquette well enough to earn trust in rooms where foreign executives weren't taken seriously. I rebuilt failing vendor pipelines at 3 in the morning. I did not build something fragile. I built something foundational. "You didn't underestimate me," I said calmly. "You undervalued stability." Silence followed. Because that was the real issue. Ethan didn't create corruption. He exploited cracks that already existed. A culture that prioritized speed over scrutiny. Optics over oversight. Ambition over integrity. "Come back as COO," another director offered. "Direct reporting to the board. Complete autonomy." I almost smiled. 6 months ago, that would have been everything. A corner office. Influence. Recognition. But something inside me had shifted the moment security escorted me out like a liability. I realized I had been giving loyalty to a system that only valued leverage. "No," I said. Just that. No explanation. No dramatic speech. Just clarity. They tried again. More equity. Profit participation. Public statement restoring my reputation. That one almost offended me. My reputation had never been damaged. Only their perception of it. "I will complete the consulting engagement for the investigation," I continued. "After that, we're done." The meeting ended without handshakes. Only nods of resignation. By Friday, federal indictments were filed. Ethan Caldwell faced multiple counts of wire fraud and conspiracy. The CFO's testimony detailed how they planned to accelerate payments through shell vendors during departmental restructuring. My termination had been the distraction. Chaos creates cover. Except they miscalculated. They didn't expect the contract clause. They didn't expect the audit trigger. They didn't expect me to stay silent instead of fighting publicly. The key person provision forced a compliance review that uncovered every manipulated milestone and rerouted payment. That clause didn't just protect revenue. It forced transparency. And transparency is lethal to fraud. I spent the next 2 weeks in conference rooms with federal investigators, walking them through contract language line by line. Each page told a story of careful negotiation, risk mitigation, and documentation. I watched agents' expressions change as they realized how deliberate the manipulation had been. When the final report was submitted, the lead investigator shook my hand. "You built safeguards most companies ignore," she said. "That's rare." Rare. That word stayed with me. Rare to build something durable. Rare to prioritize foresight over ego. Rare to walk away from power when it's offered back to you at a premium. The severance package arrived the following Tuesday. $2.3 million. Compensation for deferred bonuses and unrealized equity. No non-compete. No gag order. Just a quiet acknowledgement of value. I signed it without hesitation. That afternoon, I cleaned out the last remnants of Meridian from my apartment. Old files. Award plaques. Business cards from conferences that blurred together. I kept only one thing. The original Hikari contract binder. Not for sentiment. For reminder. A reminder that protection is not paranoia. It's preparation. For the first time in 14 years, I woke up without a calendar dictating my day. No early morning Tokyo calls. No late night Singapore revisions. Just silence. And possibility. That silence terrified me at first. For so long, urgency defined my worth. If I wasn't needed, was I valuable? It took weeks to untangle that belief. The first client call came from Hikari's CEO directly. "Julia, we prefer to work with you, not the brand," he said simply. That sentence changed everything. Because I realized something profound. I wasn't loyal to Meridian. My clients weren't loyal to Meridian. We were loyal to trust. To competence. To results. And those things travel with people, not logos. Within a month, I registered a new company. Bennett Advisory Group. No corporate jargon. No inflated titles. Just my name. My standards. My rules. I leased a modest brownstone office in Brooklyn instead of a glass skyscraper. I hired 3 former team members who chose integrity over chaos. We built slowly. Intentionally. Contracts structured differently this time. Transparent clauses. Ethical oversight. Shared profit pools. No single point of executive override. If Meridian taught me anything, it was this: unchecked power rots from the inside. 6 months later, our revenue matched what I once earned in salary alone. Not because we chased scale, but because we protected value. Hikari became our anchor client. A Chicago manufacturing group followed. Then a renewable energy firm expanding into Southeast Asia. Word spread quietly. Julia Bennett doesn't just negotiate deals. She protects them. One morning, I saw the headline. Former Meridian CEO sentenced to 15 years. I read it once, then closed the tab. I felt no triumph. No vindication. Just distance. Ethan thought dominance meant spectacle. Public firings. Aggressive pivots. Executive overrides. Real power is restraint. Real power is designing systems that outlast personalities. He tried to prove authority by erasing me. Instead, he exposed himself. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do to someone corrupt is remove yourself and let structure reveal truth. On the 1-year anniversary of my termination, I bought fresh yellow tulips and placed them in a glass vase on my office desk. A small ritual. A reminder of that week. The rain against Manhattan windows. The silence that followed. The moment I chose not to beg for reinstatement. Not to retaliate emotionally. Just to let contracts, audits, and facts do their work. If you're listening to this and you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or escorted out with a cardboard box in your hands, hear me clearly. Being fired is not always failure. Sometimes it's exposure. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's the universe forcing you to build something you would have been too loyal to attempt. The golden loophole in my story wasn't just a contract clause. It was perspective. The moment I stopped asking how to win inside their system and started asking whether I should build my own. And that question changed everything. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your city in the comments below. Tell me if you've ever walked away from something that no longer valued you. Hit the like button if you believe integrity still matters in business. And subscribe to the channel for more real stories about power, consequences, and finding your worth when the boardroom doors close behind you. Because sometimes, when someone tells you you're all done, what they really mean is, you're finally free.